Hello, my name is Caitlin Stredney, and I'm going to be presenting on the Colonial Pipeline cybersecurity attack. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss what the crisis was, any warning signs, the crisis management efforts, if the organization was successful in their efforts, and one additional thing that they should have done differently. So what is the Colonial Pipeline? Well, the Colonial Pipeline is one of our major refined product pipelines in the United States. They became operational in 1964, fueling America with gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. The pipeline consists of 4 main lines with several branches that connect to those, making up 5,500 miles of pipeline from Texas to New York. Every day, the Colonial Pipeline moves about 3 million barrels of fuel. So what happened exactly? Well, the Colonial Pipeline was attacked cyberly on May 7th, 2021. Hackers used ransomware to seize control of the computer operations. So what is ransomware? Well, ransomware is software that blocks victims' data so they can't access or use it, and then they demand a ransom. In this case, the hackers demanded a ransom of 75 Bitcoin or $4.4 million at the time. Because of this, the Colonial Pipeline shut down all pipeline operations. This included all monitoring and fuel system controls. Turmoil amongst motorists ensued, causing fuel shortages from people lining up at the gas pump, filling their vehicles and gas cans. And also, it increased gasoline prices. So how did the attack happen? Well, the hackers are a cyber crime group called DarkSide, and they are known to operate out of Eastern Europe. They gained entry through a virtual private network, or a VPN. So what is a VPN? Well, a VPN is an encrypted protected network connection to disguise a user's online identity. In this case, the Colonial Pipeline's VPN did not have a multi-factor authentication. In fact, it only had a single username and password to gain access. You might be familiar with multi-factor authentication. For example, my Gmail requires me to give my email address, give my password, and then it will also prompt me a text message on my cell phone requiring me to give a code along with my email and password to ensure that I am the one who is entering my email. It is also known that the password for the Colonial Pipeline VPN was discovered amongst leaked passwords on the dark web. So were there any warning signs that signaled this impending crisis? Well, on March 21st, 2021, President Biden issued a statement warning of imminent cyber attacks. This warning also came with documents for businesses to beef up their security systems. Now, this included businesses such as the fuel industry, our electrical infrastructure, and financial institutions. Unfortunately, the cyber attack happened just 2 months after President Biden issued his statement. Another warning signal was a technological discontinuity. Unfortunately, the Colonial Pipeline had this VPN that was unused yet vulnerable, and it had not been updated to the proper cyber security protocols. The cyber attack could have been avoided if the Colonial Pipeline kept up with cybersecurity measures and technology. So the management efforts put forth by the company, the Colonial Pipeline did quite a bit. At 5 a.m., May 7th, 2021, a frontline worker found the ransom note on the screen of a computer. He then directly reported this ransom note to the operations supervisor. The operations supervisor then immediately put in place the protocols to shut all pipeline operations down. This included measures and monitors and controls to evaluate fuel pressure, any fuel leaks in the pipelines, everything. The Colonial CEO, Joseph Blunt, said this: "We had no choice at that point. It was absolutely the right thing to do. At that time, we had no idea who was attacking us and what their motives were. This prompted the Colonial Pipeline to shut everything down. They had no idea how far the cyber attackers had gotten into their computer systems and all the information that they had." The Colonial Pipeline paid the ransom of $4.4 million, and the hackers gave them an access code to then give them their information back. The Colonial Pipeline resumed their operation May 12th, 2021, just 5 days later. To avoid any further crisis, they also physically examined the pipeline by sending out helicopters and people on the ground while their control systems were down to monitor and ensure that the pipeline was safe and there were no leaks. The Colonial Pipeline also hired the cybersecurity team called Mandan. Mandan put in the tools and sweeps into their computer systems to find out how far the hackers probed the information they got and to prevent them from getting any more. Was the organization successful in their crisis management response? In my opinion, yes. The Colonial Pipeline response was successful. The Colonial Pipeline utilized frontline employees and took their concerns, finding the ransom note, seriously and acted on them. The operations supervisor gathered all information he had, even though it was not much, but acted quickly and decisively on that. Then he shut down all systems while still monitoring and controlling the crisis. It eventually led to the declaration of the end of the crisis. So what is one additional thing they should have done differently? I think that the Colonial Pipeline could have prepared better for a cyber attack. They could have done this by creating a contingency plan. A contingency plan consists of organizing a planning team, in this case around the threat cybersecurity, assessing the scope of the problem, developing a plan, testing the plan, and keeping the plan up to date. This contingency could help the Colonial Pipeline identify sources of cybersecurity threats, risks, and vulnerabilities to better prepare them in the future. So in conclusion, the Colonial Pipeline cybersecurity attack resulted in the pipeline paying $4.4 million to their attackers, shutting down all pipeline systems for 5 days, panic buying from the motorists that were affected by the pipeline being shut down, and the DOJ, or the Department of Justice, recovered $2.3 million of the original ransom. So what did we learn? We learned that cyber threats are becoming more common because cyber attackers are becoming more sophisticated. We need to be prepared. We can do this by educating ourselves and figuring out the threats and vulnerabilities that our companies are susceptible to. Furthermore, we need to take warning seriously. If we have any inclination from any authoritative organization that there is a threat, we need to assess, and have a plan in place. Thank you for listening to my presentation.